Good day, everyone. The topic that we will discuss for today is all about communication. Communication may be defined the transfer of informations, including feelings, ideas from one person to another. Communication is achieving understanding between people, requires two ways communicate of information in the ideas, thoughts, and other issues in the surrounding of us. The importance of communications. Without communications, organizations cannot exist. It is through communications that the individual members of the organization will know the important concerns, such as number 1, what the organization is, number 2, what objectives the organization wants to achieve, number 3, what the rules are in achieving the organization's objectives, number 4, how they will be achieved those objectives, and lastly, number 5, who the individual members of the organizations are. The communication process. Communication process is the two-way process in which a sender reaches a receiver with a message. There is a need for people in organizations to have knowledge of the communication process, and it is the first step to make it effective. There are 6 components of effective communications. They are the following. 1 is a communication source or a sender. Number 2, a message. Number 3, a channel. Number 4, a receiver. Number 5, a feedback. And lastly is the environment. The communication process shows this diagram how the information is transferred. Then this diagram shows that how the information is transferred. For example, the sender will be me. Then I will choose the channel is through face-to-face. Then the environment is the classroom. The receiver is my classmate, and the feedback will be their reaction in my discussion how they understand this information. Like how the information is transferred to a receiver, and the receiver will be transferred to a noise, then how the reaction or a feedback connected to the sender. These are the definitions of the 6 components of communications. First, a sender is a communication source, or a sender is a person who makes the attempt to send a message, which could be spoken, written, in sign language, or nonverbal to another persons or a group of persons. The degree of attention to the message will depend on the perceived authority and experience of a sender. For example, the person who puts a letter in the mailbox is known as a sender. A device that organizes or generates as information transferred to one another or more receiver. The message. The message, a purpose or an idea to convey a communications event. The message is actual physical products as result of encoding. Thus, when speaking, this speech is the message. When written documents is a message. When making gestures, the message. The movements of the arms and expressions of face are the message. So, how the message is received influenced by the following factors. There are 4. So, first, clarity of the message. Second, alertness of the receiver. Third, complexity and length of the message. Fourth, how the information is organized. For example, a speech made before the press and giving them information on your political positions. These are the example of the message. Then, there are 2 types of components of the message. First, the thought of conceptual components of the message. This is contained the words, ideas, symbols, and concepts chosen to the relay and message. Second, the feeling or emotional components of the message. This contained in the intensity, force, demeanor, and sometimes the gestures of the communicator. or a sender. This second component enriches and clarifies the message, and its effects is to give the message its full meaning. Third, the channel. The channel is the medium through which the message travels. It consists types which are the following. First, face-to-face. Second, telephone and cell phones. Third, emails. Fourth, written memos and letters. Fifth, posted notice. And lastly is the bulletins. So, communication channel may be classified also as first, formal, and second, informal. The communication of policies, procedures, and other officials announced properly belong to the formal channel because it is the one of recognized as authoritative, and second, informal channel do not follow the chain of command because this is so people can get a contact with each other of faster pace. So the channel, for example, it should be used to promote these techniques so a sender transmit information through communications channel to a receiver. Is the receiver. The person receiving a message is the receiver. It must interpret, understand the message. In doing so, however, will be influenced by the factors like his age, gender, beliefs, past experiences, cultural influence, and his individual needs. For example, it is the listener, readers, or observer that is individual or a group of individual to whom a message directed. The receiver, also called audience or decoder. Fifth, the feedback. The feedback refers to the process of communicating how one feels about something another person has done or said. It's difficult to know whether the message was received and understood without feedback. A feedback provides a clue to the sender information whether the message he sent was received and intended. For example, it is the judge in the dance competition giving a constructive criticism after the performance. For example, like how they react, the feedback on how the performance released the dance competitions. And last, the environment. The environment refers to the circumstance which in a message are transmitted and received. In an environment of trust and confidence of a message are easily transmitted even if this message are controversial. For example, the environment they includes values, attributes, and ideological regarding nature and environmental issues. And last, the noise. The noise refers to anything that disrupts communications, including the attitude and emotional of the receiver. For example, if any external or environment stimulates that distract us from receiving intended message sent by communicator. The basic methods of interpersonal communications. People in organizations transfer meaning between the among each other using or any all of the three basic methods which consist of the following. First, the verbal communications. Second, written communications. Third, and non-verbal communications. First is the verbal communication. It's a major means of sending message. It includes one-on-one meetings, speeches, grapevine, telephone, departmental or interdepartmental meetings, presentations, and the like of the delivery of a verbal is quick, and it provides the opportunity for the quick feedback. They have verbal communication appropriate method and verbal communication not appropriate. First, appropriate method wants to upper the informal Second, wants to invite a suggestional ideas which are more likely to spark off. Third, explaining something complex people might need to ask from clarification as that goes along. Fourth, has important news to impact such as retrenchment. Fifth, needs to be very diplomatic and feels will be more effective face to face than with written. And lastly, sixth, has something highly confidential to say and putting in writing risky. Verbal communication not appropriate. First, wants to maintain formality or distance from the other person or a group of people. Second, wants to permanent record of what has been said. Third, needs to receive a comments to be in written or legal reasons. And fourth, one wants to avoid further discussions of the subject something that the matter is closed. Second is the written communication. Written communication includes memos, notice board, and the letters of to staff, emails, faxes, newspaper, and instant messaging. The written communications, they have the advantage of written communications are the following. Then they have written not appropriate when. There are 8 advantages of written communications. First is it is a formal and authoritative. Second, it provides a permanent record of what has been said. Third, it provides a document or useful for legal purposes. Fourth, a number of people will receive exactly the same information. Fifth, it is useful to communicating something complicated. Sixth, it is sometimes quicker, fax, or is faster than a phone call. 7. It's avoid lengthy discussions. And lastly, number 8, words can be chosen carefully. Written at appropriate when they have 6. So first, the receiver needs to ask questions or seek clarifications. Second, the more discussions is needed before facts are established. Third, a friendly and informal atmosphere is needed. Fourth, the message is very important. 5, the message is confidential. And lastly, the information may be upsetting to the receiver. We have the nonverbal communications. Nonverbal communication that takes place through facial expressions, body movements, eye contact, and other physical gestures is referred to as nonverbal communications.
Functions of communication. Communication serves 4 major functions within a group or organization. This function consists of the following: information function, the motivation function, control function, emotive function. The information function, communication provides information needed in decision making. This idea of informing within an organization is to provide data and information so that employees can effectively complete their job. Information ensures that an employee is aware of the rules and procedures of an organization. Example, a machine operator's job is to produce a certain number of units of a product given in a certain quantity of supplies and materials. Before he proceeds on requisitioning the necessary materials and supplies, he needs to know the quantity of finished products his supervisor wants him to produce. The second is motivation function. Communication is a means used to encourage commitment to organizational objectives. Motivation is to try to persuade another person to change his or her opinion, attitude, or behavior. Example, When employees are informed that the company or the organization faces a direct and significant threat from a newly established rival, they may decide to put out more effort to support the organization. The third is the control function. Communication clarifies duties, authority, and responsibilities, thereby permitting control. It is means being able to use language, gestures, and emotions to manage individual or group activities. Example, if the worker is informed on what exactly he is expected to do, that information alone is enough for the worker to check if he is performing as expected. This will also make it easy for the management to pinpoint deviations from what is expected from the worker. Next is the emotive function. Emotive function communication permits the expression of feelings and the satisfaction of social needs. It also called expressive and help us to interpret emotions, feelings, desires, and moods of the subject. This function also gives us direct information about the sender's tone. Example, a male coworker's aggressive and offensive behavior is making it difficult for a female employee to focus on her work. The harassment ended after she told the offending coworker that she disapproves of what he is doing and she will not hesitate to report him. Next is the basic goals of effective communication. The purpose of effective communication is to get your specific audience to the desired goal. The goal could be informing them or allowing them to understand a message, but also to pursue or convince them to take action. In organizations, communication must be made effective. Being effective, however, is not an end, but rather a means to an end. Communication is not just about transferring messages from one person to another. In organizations, communication must be made effective. Being effective, however, is not an end, but rather a means to an end. Effective communication is really a way to achieve certain goals which consists of the following. Number 1 is to gain goodwill. Number 2 is to inquire. Number 3 is to inform. And number 4 is to pursue. It can be expected that when communication goals are achieved, accomplishing the organizational objectives will be a matter of course. Next is the barriers to communication. There are times when the receiver is not able to properly receive or understand the message as intended by the sender. This is due to a variety of barriers that may impede the communication effort. These barriers consist of the following: filtering, selective perception, information overload, emotions, language, communication apprehension, absence of feedback, physical separation, and lack of credibility of the sender. Filtering refers to the manipulation of information so that it will be seen more favorably by the receiver. Example, when subordinates filter information to avoid displeasing their superiors, such as when reporting the increasing number of employees turnover. Sometimes filtering is used to promote one's interest in the organizations. Filtering can be neutralized if the superior uses other channels of communications like the grapevine. Next is the selective perception. Receivers selectively see and hear messages based on their needs, motivations, experience, background, and other personal characteristics. Example, if an HR manager in charge of hiring has negative beliefs and stereotypes of a certain gender or race, they likely aren't going to hire them even if that candidate is the best fit for the job. They still won't hire them because all they see are the stereotypes person. Next is the information overload. Information overload refers to the condition in which information inflow exceeds an individual's processing capacity. When this happens, the person is no longer able to understand clearly what information is sent to him. Example: if you try to read a book while listening to music and watching television, you are trying to consume too much data at one time. Your brain may become overwhelmed by all the information. Next is emotions. The receiver's feelings affect his ability to understand any message sent to him. He cannot receive a message as clearly as when he is not angry, excited, or afraid. Example: when someone we care about displays behavior associated with sadness, we are likely to know that we need to provide support. Next is the language. Words do not always mean the same thing to different people. It usually occurs when two people who speak different languages cannot understand one another. Example: people speaking languages native to different religions. Next is the communication apprehension. It refers to the undue tension and anxiety about oral communication, written communication, or both. Example: if there are people who find it extremely difficult to talk with others, especially when face-to-face or even carry a telephone conversation. To compensate, they try to find another means to communicate when oftentimes are less effective and more time-consuming. Next is the absence of feedback. Feedback is an essential component of effective communication. When feedback is received by the sender, he can make some clarification if he thinks the receiver did not clearly understand what the sender means. The feedback is a key component in the communication process because it allows the sender to evaluate the effectiveness of the message. Example is when I am reporting, then the feedback of this reporting is depend on our instructor. Next is the physical separation. Physical separation refers to interference to effective communication occurring in the environment where the communication is undertaken. These are actually physical barriers, which include the following: distance between people, walls, an office that is not conducive to communication, an intimidating person posted near the door, or wrong timing. The conversations can be conversations can be happen by physical obstacle to communication. They could be manifest from the natural world or come from human invention. The factors may hinder the sender's ability to communicate with the recipient or may rely in the recipient misinterpreting message. The last is the lack of credibility of the sender. Depending on the credibility of the sender, messages can get through the channel to the receiver. If the sender has low credibility, the message, even if it gets through, will likely be ignored. This is a type of barrier that should be overcome by the leaders of organizations. Examples: the leaders on the organization should be credible. His lieutenants must be credible, and the leader should make them credible before the eyes of the members of the organizations. If by omission or commission, he makes a move that sabotages the credibility of his assistants, it would be tantamount to sabotaging his own credibility efforts. Without credibility, receivers may be suspicious, resistant, or even hostile towards communication. Next is the kinds of communication flow. The flow of communication in organization takes different directions. It consists of the following: the downward, the upward, and the horizontal. The downward communication refers to message flows from higher levels to lower levels. Their purposes are to give instructions, to provide information about policies and procedures, to give feedback about performance, and to indoctrinate or motivate. The various techniques used in downward communications are letters, meetings, and the telephone or cell phone, manuals, handbooks, and newsletters. The upward communication. Upward communication refers to messages from person in lower level positions to person in higher positions. Its purposes are to provide feedback to higher ups, to inform higher ups of progress towards goals, and to relay current problems. The technique used in upward communications are performance, reports, suggestion systems, informal grape sessions, open door policy, and exit interviews. The horizontal communication refers to messages that sent to individuals or groups from one another of the same organizational level or position. Its purposes are to coordinate activities between departments, to pursue others at the same level of organization, and to pass on information about activities or feelings. The techniques appropriate for horizontal communications are memos, telephones or cell phones, picnics and dinners, and other social affairs. This is the chart shows the downward communication, the upward communication, and the horizontal communication. The downward moving communication, it indicates that informations that moves from superiors to subordinates and usually consists of directives or updates. Examples: the CEO will send out an email to all his managers that there would be a mandatory layoffs that needed to be implemented by the end of the month. The upward moving communication, it is the information that moves from the subordinates to superiors and usually consists of feedback or reports. Examples: the marketing manager wanted an increase in her monthly monthly advertising budget. She or he will ask to the vice president of marketing for a consideration of a 10% per month increase. The last is the horizontal communication. It is the information that flows from worker to worker or manager to manager and consists of reports or data. Example: one coworker telling another coworker about the company's stock price. That's all, sir. Thank you.